Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Vancouver. In this one, we have our featured prelim and what quite possibly is the fight of the night. I will say it is my favorite fight on the card, that's for sure. We have Charles Jourdain taking on Davey Grant. Jourdain is 16-8-1 as a professional, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, while Grant is 15-7 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So looking at Jourdain in his last 5, he was on a pretty good streak, beating Kron Gracie and submitting Ricardo Ramos. Then went on a 2-fight skid last year, losing to Sean Woodson at UFC 297, and then getting knocked out in the first time in his career by João Silva at UFC 303. But then Jourdain decided to move down to bantamweight and last November and submitted Victor Henry, which is honestly a pretty good win in the bantamweight division. I think Victor Henry's a respectable contender. Now, not ranked contender, sure, but he has a lot of UFC wins and is a pretty good fighter. And, Jourdain was able to submit him. Honestly, it's crazy. Jourdain has been in the UFC for quite a while now, and what's even crazier for me is that he's turning 30 in about a month. He has a lot of UFC fights, a lot of UFC experience, but yet it still feels like he's more or less a fresh face. At least with this fight at bantamweight, it feels like he has a real shot at making something. Because at featherweight, he was always this reliable action fighter. Very fun one at that. He's had some great fights like Hadim Dawodu. That was an absolutely exciting fight. Or even in losses with Julian Erosa. Even in the loss, the fight was absolutely entertaining. It's always entertaining with Charles Jourdain. Although I guess not so much with the Kron Gracie fight, but what are you supposed to do when a fighter keeps trying to pull guard? And as for this bantamweight run, like I'm saying, Jourdain has been a career featherweight throughout his entire UFC run. In fact, most of his MMA career. So moving down to bantamweight, it was kind of an interesting choice that he made. Now, he was supposed to fight earlier this year in June against Ricky Simon, which was a very good next level test for Jourdain. Unfortunately, he had to pull out, and instead is fighting almost a year later. They're now taking on Davey Grant. Look at Grant's last 5. He knocks out Louis Roulet, then submits Rafael Assunção via inverted triangle. His last loss was about 2 years ago against Daniel Marcos, or I take it back, a little over 2 years ago, in a split decision loss to Daniel Marcos, which I do believe Davey Grant won. I still think he won that fight. But since then, and on a 2-fight win streak, beat Roman Tavares last December, and then this July, defeated Damon Blackshear when he was well over a 3-1 underdog. Grant's another fighter that very intrigues me because he's been in the UFC since the Ultimate Fighter Season 18. Rough, and that was a good few years. That was like over 5 years ago. He's been in the UFC a while, Davey Grant, and he has some wins that have aged wonderfully. I mean, he knocked out Jonathan Martinez a few years ago. When Martinez was still, coming up the ranks before he became then a ranked contender. I know he's not now, but at that time, knocking out Jonathan Martinez was quite an impressive feat. And that's where the trickiness of this fight comes in. This is honestly the hardest fight for me to predict because I believe Charles Jourdain is very skilled in this bantamweight division. He's going to be tall, rangy, a good combination of long range striking, good close range striking, and a good mix of opportunistic submissions and some good defensive wrestling. Now, he's not the best wrestler. Some people, other featherweights have taken him down and controlled him. But usually if Jourdain has an opportunity to snatch the neck, he's going to take it. I mean, shoot. Looking at like the Ricardo Ramos fight, and granted, Ricardo Ramos has low fight IQ, but still, the way Jourdain was just persistent with that guillotine, never letting Ramos' head go, constantly switching up the grips, hips, until he eventually sunk in the guillotine. Kind of shows the persistentness of Jourdain's submission game. Same with Victor Henry, where he got the high elbow guillotine after not stopping with his submission attempts. But now he's taking on Davey Grant, who is such a wily veteran. And I mean, he really lives up to his name, Dangerous Davey Grant, because he really is dangerous ever. He has surprising knockout power. Like I said, knocked out Jonathan Martinez and hurt and dropped Roman Tavares too in their fight. Now, he didn't drop Damon Blackshear in his fight in July, but he hurt him a lot and was able to ward off some of the grappling attack against one of the division's more physical forces when it comes to the grappling department. Yeah, I mean, you can never count out Davey Grant in a fight. He is so wily, so gritty, and just so damn determined to win. It's so tough to get him out of there. Now, looking at this skills-wise, both these guys can do everything. Jourdain and Grant sort of have a similar striking style. They're both pretty tall and lanky for this division. They both have a similar reach too at 69 inches, and they use it to great effect. And I would say though Grant has the better kicking arsenal roughly than Jourdain. I mean, then again, Jourdain does have some like spinning wheel kicks and good push kicks as well. I'm now thinking of that fight with Hadim Dawodu where he was going like, "Are you not entertained?" with throwing a cartwheel kick to Hadim Dawodu's face by the end of that fight. But Grant's got really good kicks himself. Really good calf kicks specifically. He's able to really numb his opponent's calves with his kicks. I know that sounds redundant, but basically what I'm trying to say is his calf kicks are stinging. And in fact, his kicks to all over are pretty dangerous as well. The grappling part is going to be interesting for me, though. I say Grant is going to be the overall better grappler, better wrestler. But like I said, never count out Jourdain when it comes to grappling because he is persistent with his headlocks and will, even if he fails the first time, he's not going to stop until he gets that guillotine once Jourdain's arm is wrapped around his opponent's head. That being said, Grant is also very tricky. I mean, getting an inverted triangle is no easy feat, and he was able to do it against a seasoned fighter like Rafael Assunção. Now, I understand Assunção was pretty old at that time, but so was Grant. I mean, shoot, Grant will be 40 in about a week or two. It's not like you can say, oh, his opponent was old. You know, he has an excuse to lose to Grant. That doesn't matter. Grant does not stop. I mean, it's crazy to think. To kind of paint a picture, think of it this. In July, he fought Damon Blackshear and won pretty easily, 29-28 decision. He fought someone who was about 8 to 7 years younger, stronger of the two, vastly superior, seemed like the better grappler, and just seemed like Grant was at this age where, 39 years old, at bantamweight, you can be old overnight. And instead, no, had a rough first round, got out grappled, but then kept that veteran calmness, composure, and eventually just started picking his shots on Blackshear. You can never count out Grant in a fight. Now, I'm going to say the odds right now, just to get this out of the way. Minus 178 for Jourdain, plus 138 for Grant. I disagree with this full-heartedly. Now, Jourdain has a slight favorite, which he was at open. I completely understand. But I feel this is more of a pick'em, if I'm being honest. Like, at best, like maybe plus 100 to Grant, minus 120, minus 110 at best to Jourdain. I know that's odd, thinking, Jourdain is going to be 30. He's entering his prime. And he seems like the fighter with the bigger upside in order to, make something of this bantamweight division. But I can't count out Davey Grant at all. He's beaten fighters who he should not have beaten. Even my kitty is so engaged in this that she has to go on my shoulder. But I just can't count out Davey Grant in a fight. I really can't. Also, you notice Grant is pretty tricky with his striking. I've noticed this in watching the tape. He loves going for a sort of lunging left to the body to get his opponent's hands down. Then he comes in over top with a right hand. And some other, just sneaky stuff like that is one of Grant's specialties. He's the definition of a gritty, tricky veteran. He knows certain tricks that most fighters don't learn just yet, or his younger contemporaries don't know just yet, and is able to exploit that and use it to his advantage. I don't know how well that's going to work on Jourdain. I say this because Jourdain has almost the same level of UFC experience as Grant. He's been in there with some of the best featherweight has to offer. Now, Grant has also fought a lot of great bantamweights too. And while, you can argue which division has more skilled fighters, you can't argue that both these divisions are cutthroat and shark tanks. And the fact that both of them have gotten more wins than losses in those divisions says how good they are and how they're able to handle the adversity coming their way. Now, granted, Grant has a bit more wins, and Jourdain is always like one loss away from having like a 50% record in the UFC. But, that just speaks to the level of opposition they both fight. Overall, not a confident pick. I'm gonna tell you guys now, but I'm gonna go with Charles Jourdain. I believe that a lot of Grant's tricky striking will not be as favorable for him in this matchup as Jourdain. Look at his last two opponents specifically. Roman Tavares is a boxer that has a pretty one-dimensional game and not too much diversity in his striking. Damon Blackshear, very powerful grappler, very dangerous submission artist, but pretty one-dimensional. And while Blackshear has improved on the feet, he doesn't have the same diversity in his attacks as Jourdain, in my opinion. I think Charles Jourdain is a much better striker than both of them and has better weapons and tools to help deal with the trickiness of Grant on the feet. Not to mention, while his grappling defense is not the best, I still think Jourdain has enough high-level experience with arguably better grapplers than Grant to not only stay safe, but also advance his position, get out of bad positions, and get the more dominant positions of the two. I mean, handling the guard of Kron Gracie, even if the guard pulling is fucking useless at this point in MMA, it's still a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioner that Jourdain was going against, and he showed well-roundedness in being able to make smart decisions when in the guard. Now, Grant doesn't pull guard, and his grappling is a bit different than Kron Gracie's. But the point I'm trying to make with this is that Jourdain has enough experience with not only high-level strikers, but high-level grapplers, that he's able to blend his mixed martial arts together in order to counteract him. I mostly see throughout this fight Jourdain kind of sticking at range and being able to pick apart Grant on the feet at times. Now, I do see moments where Grant is either winning and or big moments like, say, hurting Jourdain or getting him in a bad submission. But I think Jourdain will be able to grit it out. And I think he's going to win a close decision. Note that when I say this, a close decision. I see this going the distance. Grant is extremely hard to get out of there. Jourdain is very hard to get out of there. I see this going like 29-28 decision. I can even see split decision. This is how close I really think this fight is and why I think it's fight of the night. You have two high-level operators, both roughly the same level of skill sets, I think, and just at the level it's like, I guess the best way I could say it is like, if these two fought 10 times, now I could be wrong, and maybe one of them shows that they're the better fighter. But I feel like if these two were to fight 10 times, I feel like either one of them could have 5 wins out of 10. I truly think it's that close of a matchup. This is why I'm super excited for it. But officially, I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain, and I'm going to pick him via decision. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you liked the video, comment and subscribe. Let me know what your favorite, or let me know if this is your favorite fight on the card. And if so, who do you think will win? Next up, we'll have our main card opener, Kyle Nelson, taking on Matt Fervola. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. And thank you all for listening. Take care.